Welcome on into the Wolverine TV. Clayton Safey here with EJ Holland. We're going to break down 5 recruits that the Michigan staff saw during the bye week. They were all over the country, pretty much coast to coast, seeing guys, right in their backyard, as we'll talk about with Dion Walker here in a second, down in the South. Out on the West Coast as well. Jim Harbaugh making some personal trips and prioritizing certain guys. So, EJ, let's talk about that. I was there on Friday night for Cass Tech against King. We'll talk about the other side of things, the King side in a second. But, Dion Walker showing out in his team's close loss to arch rival King. But Jim Harbaugh and Matt Weiss were in attendance, quarterbacks coach Matt Weiss and, Michigan's head coach Jim Harbaugh. And, flipping back and forth between the sidelines, shaking hands, taking pictures with kids and, families and things like that were coming up to him, getting there early for the Division II game, the end of that, and then waiting an hour while the teams warmed up and that first game finished up, sat in the rain, and then we're there until damn near midnight. So Michigan really showing that they want to be in their backyard. They want to have a presence in Detroit.
Yeah, starting off with Dion Walker, he is still one of the biggest priorities remaining. And things with Dion Walker have just been a little odd lately. I think that there's a lot of, negative buzz surrounding his recruitment and Michigan, especially with his good friend Mario Eugenio recently decommitting. I think that's kind of raised some questions as far as whether he's still really, really high on Michigan, whether he's soured on Michigan. Look, with Dion Walker, I think he's always been intrigued with the idea of playing in the South. Kentucky is a school he really liked. He enjoyed his visit there a couple of weeks ago. He's coming off an official visit to Missouri. Alabama offered, and he'll likely visit there before the end of the cycle. And so I think, again, those options are just really appealing to him. And I think later in the cycle, maybe some of these kids closer to home start thinking, well, what if I do go far away from home? Everybody expects me to just go to Michigan. Like, what if I actually do something different? And I think that's kind of a little bit of what Dion's thinking here. At the end of the day, there's still a feeling around Michigan that they can get him in for an official visit last. And that's kind of their game plan, is to bring him in last and then just kind of seal the deal there and win him over. I mean, there was a point in the summer where it basically looked like it was a done deal. It was a slam dunk. That's no longer the case anymore. But again, there's still a feeling that Michigan can just win him over at the end, kind of like they did with Rayshon Benny. Obviously a different situation with Benny having committed to Michigan State and Dion looking down south, but they were able to close with Benny, at the very, very end. And there was always a sense that, let Benny kind of deal with Michigan State and we'll win him over at the end. And I think that's kind of the line of thinking with Dion Walker, and it's going to be a similar type of approach. So that's basically the latest with him. He'll continue to make visits and Michigan will continue to recruit him hard. And that's why Jim Harbaugh was at the game.
No doubt. So you're saying it won't be as fun for Michigan fans if they land Dion Walker as it was for Rayshon Benny, because that was one of the more fired up I'd ever seen the message board or Twitter. You were getting trolled before, when he committed to Michigan State, and then it, comes back, he comes to Michigan. But yeah, it does feel similar in that sense where, timelines have been changed, because remember with Benny, he was changing his a little bit, due to a couple different factors. So, feels like a similar type of deal. But yeah, as you mentioned, Michigan definitely making him a priority down the stretch here. As signing day approaches in December, the early one at least. He could obviously take it past that. The other guy in that game is who I mentioned, 2023 quarterback Dante Moore, basically the crown jewel of that 2023 class. If Michigan's able to land him, you've made the comparisons to Donovan Edwards being that headliner in 2021, and then Will Johnson being the headliner in 2022 when it comes to in-state guys. It's Dante Moore in 2023, and he would be a huge land at the quarterback spot. He played against Cass Tech. Jim Harbaugh, as I mentioned in a show earlier in the week, was cheering a little bit when Dante was making some nice throws. He had a couple touchdowns to lead his team back from 15 points down. They scored 21 unanswered to win this game. He looked impressive. Matt Weiss, quarterback's coach, also there to really kind of take some detailed or get a detailed evaluation. Really looked like he was observing just about everything, and both guys were filming on their phones a couple different things. Maybe they can watch it back. Maybe they can go over it with him. Who knows exactly what they were trying to get out of that, but they were really, really engaged in this game, and Michigan has to continue to make it a priority to show Dante Moore that he is their guy in 2023 that they need to have.
Yeah, so Dante is the only 2023 recruit on this list that we'll be talking about. He's that important. And again, there's a reason Jim Harbaugh and Matt Weiss went out there to see him on Friday night. Everybody knows how much I love Dante. I think he checks the boxes as a five-star recruit and has an argument as the top quarterback in the country next cycle. He is the most important target for next cycle. The list starts and ends with him. Right now, I think Michigan is in a really good spot. I think he's been impressed with the way Michigan has played this season. And even though, there's fans that aren't too happy with the way quarterback play has gone or the lack of, shots downfield or whatever the case may be, I do feel like Dante knows that if he were to go to Michigan, they would adapt around him. And that's something Matt Weiss has talked to him about as far as adapting to the players and personnel that they have. And I think Michigan's done a good job of that this season. And you have to remember Matt Weiss obviously coached with the Baltimore Ravens and, was involved with one of the most exciting players in the NFL right now in Lamar Jackson. And even right now, you look at the Baltimore Ravens, and not to get too much into it, but you look at the Baltimore Ravens right now. I mean, that was a run-heavy team, and now Lamar Jackson's passing 40 times a game, and I think the previous weekend he was like 37 for 42 with like 300 yards. So I think Jim Harbaugh is very much willing to adapt like that as well, and I think that has been communicated well to Dante, and I think Dante's impressed with Weiss's background. He's obviously impressed with Jim Harbaugh's background as a quarterback and as a coach. And so right now, I think Michigan's, right up there with him. He still really likes Ohio State. He's originally from Ohio, so the OSU offer this summer was big. Penn State is increasingly becoming a factor. Notre Dame, Michigan State, Florida State, LSU, some other schools, down south also recruiting him hard. But I think Michigan has as good of a shot as anybody, if not even more.
Next guy, in going back to 2022, this one more of a trip for Michigan, heading out west to see Lander Barton, four-star linebacker in the 2022 class. Jim Harbaugh, Mike McDonald, going out to see him. And remember, Jim Harbaugh made a trip to see him at a satellite camp this summer as well, with linebacker recruiting being, an area where they're kind of getting more project types. And we've talked about that. It's been a recurring storyline. They're really showing that they want to get more of an elite type of guy in Lander Barton.
Yeah, with Lander, he's always been the top guy at the linebacker position. This is a guy that Jim Harbaugh personally loves. And I've heard from those around the program that Harbaugh has kind of likened him to Brian Urlacher. So this is, I think it's a little rare for Harbaugh himself to fall in love with a prospect, but he loves Lander Barton. And he went out and made a special trip just to see him in Salt Lake City for a summer satellite camp. Obviously, he returned to see him this week. Utah is kind of interesting in the sense that their last regular season games, they actually play them on Wednesdays. So they were out there to see a Wednesday night game. But yeah, even though they have Deuce Spurlock and Aaron Alexander committed as more inside linebacker types, again, they just love Lander Barton. Mike McDonald has been recruiting him hard. George Elo has been recruiting him hard. They have great relationships with him. They had him on campus for the game against Washington. But it's still a bit of an uphill battle. He's a Utah legacy. Both of his parents went to Utah and played sports there. His two older brothers went to Utah and are now in the NFL. So those are a lot of connections to overcome. On top of that, Oregon has been increasingly involved and is looking to get him on campus here soon. And then you have Texas that's done a really good job recruiting him as well. They actually have some Utah ties on their staff, and that helped out on his official visit to Austin. So it's really a dogfight for Lander Barton, but Jim Harbaugh is personally putting in a ton of time in this recruitment, and that tells you how important of a target Lander is.
Definitely. And then the next guy you mentioned, Lander Barton being in for that Washington game. So was Josh Connerly and his family from Washington. Sharon Moore making a personal visit out there. The Wolverines, I believe, were in the state of Washington, Seattle, right, for a satellite camp as well. So kind of a similar deal where, this guy is out west, not in an area that Michigan traditionally recruits at a super high level or in super high volume, but they're still saying, like, well, we want this guy and we're going to do everything we can.
Yeah, I mean, Sharon Moore and Jim Harbaugh both flew out to Seattle in the summer to see Josh Connerly. He's remained a top overall priority. Michigan only has 2 offensive linemen committed right now, Connor Jones, Alessandro Lorenzetti. So they want to take one more this cycle, and they aren't recruiting any other offensive lineman other than Josh Connerly. He is the sole focus along the offensive line, and they are showing how much they want him. And I think right now Michigan leads. And I think Michigan can close whenever Connerly's ready. You look at some of the other schools involved in his recruitment. Washington was an early favorite. They are obviously close to home, but not doing too great on the field. USC was an early favorite. They've gone down the tank. Oregon has been involved and is obviously having a good season, but not to the extent that Michigan has been involved. I think Michigan has shown him the most love. They've been there consistently. They've been there since the very beginning. He was actually a kid that Ed Warner offered during last April's draft. So I think that everything has lined up perfectly for Michigan to close with Josh Connerly.
Yep, and then the last guy, Omarion Walker, wide receiver target, is also currently committed to Notre Dame down there in Louisiana, which gave Ron Bellamy, Michigan safeties coach, a chance to go to his home state of Louisiana. He's got a ton of ties in this recruitment, and seems to relate to guys that he has ties with super well. And obviously, it's starting to pay off with Michigan, really giving him something to think about.
Yeah, Omarion still committed to Notre Dame, but continuing to make visits. Obviously, he visited Michigan for the game against Washington in September. He was back at LSU not too long ago. He, I believe, has a trip planned to Alabama as well. So he's still, open in his recruitment. When I talked to Walker last, he told me that he wants to have everything completely shut down before Thanksgiving. And so that's not too far away. I mean, we're only about a month away from Thanksgiving. So I think you could see a decision if he does decide to flip coming in the next few weeks. I still think Michigan is in a really strong spot to get him away from rival Notre Dame. Ron Bellamy has done a terrific job in this recruitment, not only relating to him on a personal level, but just having the connections around his recruitment, having played for his high school head coach at Ponchatoula. So, going out and seeing him on Friday night, I think Walker knows that he's a top priority for Michigan. So, again, still really like where things stand with Walker. I feel like he's a top of the board wide receiver target right now. Michigan likely to only take one more wide receiver. He's at the top of the board along with Dane Key, a 4-star wide receiver out of Kentucky, who Josh Gaddis actually saw on Friday night and would have been the next man on this list. But I think Omarion Walker a little more realistic with the job Bellamy has done.
So there you have it, the 5 top recruits, and even a bonus there at the end, 6 that Michigan saw during the bye week. Obviously saw tons more if you include all the guys that are teammates and stuff with these guys, and some other games that we didn't hit on that they were able to.
Quick note, Clay. Yeah. I know people are going to complain in the comments. Michigan did stop by Mater Dei, home of 5-star defensive back Damani Jackson, but he is in and out of class. He's getting ready to enroll early, so some of his classes are online. He also is out for the season with an injury, so that is why they did not see him play. But Sean Nua did stop by Mater Dei during the bye week.
Yeah, and I think per rules, right, they can run into the kid there. So hopefully he was able to run into Damani Jackson as he was, in class or whatever, or in the hallway. That's an important one as well. And EJ, as I do every time we mention Damani Jackson, if the people out there want Damani Jackson to flip from USC to Michigan, go ahead and like the video. It helps out the algorithm. It'll help, some other people watch this video, continue to follow us at thewolverine.com. So give any sort of shout out or whatever in the comments. That helps as well. And like this video if you want Damani Jackson to come to Michigan. But other than that, follow along at thewolverine.com, and we will see everybody over there.